So when you think about payment processing, you generally think about accounting or you think about sales, and often overlooked is customer service and the call center. And that's really big in consumer product goods where you're doing things like RMAs to replace an item, or let's say my smoke alarm was beeping and I hit it with a hammer to make it stop, and now I need a new mounting bracket. You call up the company and you're probably going to pay for a new mounting bracket, or maybe you won't if you don't make the process really easy. Today I'm going to talk about a really large customer of ours that had a very scattered call center, many disparate systems, really inefficient workflow, and we'll take a look at how we pulled everything together into Salesforce and built a well-oiled machine for them. I'm Chad Meyer. I'm the CEO of Internet Creations. First Alert is that company that I'm talking about. They came to us with when they had a green screen system, believe it or not, a real green screen system, information all over the place, think about 5 different systems, and we brought order to the chaos. So for those of you that don't know First Alert, I'm not sure how that could be. They're all over the place. They are probably America's biggest home safety company. Smoke alarms, fire extinguishers, now connected products like thermostats and video cameras, and even safes and all kinds of stuff. They're a Fortune 500 company. They just got acquired actually by, name will come to me later, but very large organization. It's amazing to see how some of these huge companies are still in the Stone Age, and it's really fun to bring them into the 21st century. So moving along, a little bit about what they're dealing with. 150,000 cases, it's not a trivial amount. When you're dealing with consumers versus businesses, you get all kinds of crazy calls. One story that I'd be remiss to share was when I was first visiting the First Alert folks, I asked them, what kind of calls do you get? And I sat in on a few of them, and I was told a story about how on Thanksgiving Day, they got a call from a customer who asked what was in their fire extinguishers, what was the stuff that came out of them. And the customer service rep responded with, it's this and that, and I don't remember what the specifics were. And then the customer proceeded to ask, is it safe to eat? And the agent is puzzled by the whole thing, and they're like, well, it's not toxic, but I wouldn't recommend eating it. And then she pressed for why, and it turns out that the customer had their turkey catch fire. They had 30 people coming in 30 minutes, and they put it out with a fire extinguisher, and they wanted to know if they could still serve the turkey to their guests. So if you think about like some of the crazy stuff that agents have to deal with, making a really efficient, enjoyable process to balance out some of the insanity that you're confronted with is super important. Another big one is like even identifying a model number. First Alert makes zillions of products, and like most products, model numbers are printed on the back, and the difficulty in getting folks to find basic information can make it frustrating to be a customer service rep. So make the system awesome. You can't change people. You can't change the crazy things that they come up with, but you can make the tools that you have to work with to help better. So what are the types of issues that First Alert would get on a daily basis? So pre-sales questions, of course, will this product work with that? Will this smoke detector work with the rest of my smoke detectors? Troubleshooting, why is this stupid thing beeping? I'm sure we've all been there. And then replacement parts for when you didn't care why it was beeping and you hit it with a hammer. And that's where payment processing comes in, is replacement parts. So, all right, so the whole challenge, just to back up a little bit, was that it was super time consuming to find a customer before. I mentioned that they had a green screen system. Most of the time, even if this customer called them 10 times in the past year about 10 different products, they're not even gonna bother searching because it was so time consuming. And then, depending on what path a case went down, you might be touching 5 different systems. If you wanted to look up a customer history, you're going in a ticketing system. If you want to pull up product documentation, they were going in filing cabinets. If you wanted to look up troubleshooting, like what we all know as a knowledge base, the knowledge base was the colleague down the hall who you happen to know knows a lot about product X. And then for payments, they had to log into this bank website, which would often time out on them after 10 minutes to process a payment. And if you think about how painful that was, think about how many times the customer service rep just said, ship the part and forget the payment. Which there's times that that's appropriate, but not 100% of the time because it's too hard. And then even going over to ERP to say, okay, we need to send this customer part X. So we brought all of these really 5 systems together into one beautiful Salesforce environment. Salesforce, us, and Chargent were kind of the pillars of this grand solution. So here is a lookup screen of, it's where an agent starts. Customer calls. When you're on the telephone, seconds feel like minutes, minutes feel like hours, and the ability to look things up really, really fast is critical. So we thought about what kind of information can we ask for to help a customer service agent hone in on this customer as fast as possible, and how can we quickly give them visibility to an existing case versus just creating a new duplicate case and knowing total picture. So with a couple keystrokes, you get a list of results, whether the customer is in there or not. If they're not, that same search criteria can be used to create the record for the customer and to register the product so that you know them, and off you go. Now, I'm going to focus this presentation on orders because that's where payments come in. There's a whole lot of other things that we did, like sucking down data from their IoT products so that they have good troubleshooting information right from Salesforce. But here's a classic case screen that we've all seen. It looks just like Salesforce. They happen to be using the console, and you'll notice there's an order button. And that's where the workflow starts. So customer service agent determines that they need to send some sort of part. They hit that button, and immediately they're presented with a list of all of the parts, as well as the whole good for the particular product the customer is called about. It's no work, it just loads up. The system knows exactly what comes in that box and gives them a list of everything, nothing more, nothing less. And then the agent can pick, okay, I need to send them a new backplate because it came cracked, or they cracked it, whatever, or they can replace the whole thing. And then we also created a notes section so that if some explanation is needed, like if you're going to replace a $200 thermostat in its entirety, somebody might be looking to make sure that that was the right move versus sending the customer 2 screws to make sure you're not giving away things. On the next screen, we wanted to empower the agents to deal with maybe frustrated customers that something was missing from the box. So I'm going to give you expedited shipping, or I'm going to comp your shipping, and all of that factors into the cost and the charge. But we made it really simple. Just check a box. It's reportable. It's auditable, and this isn't rocket science, but it's just lean and efficient. So we already have the customer's address, let's just confirm it, off we go. And then the next step in the workflow is to collect payment information. And again, we're reusing everything that we already know about this customer, like their address. So instead of going into some separate website where it's going to ask for their zip code again, and maybe you're going to make a mistake, or maybe you're not going to supply it and you're going to get charged a higher rate from the credit card company because the charge wasn't as qualified, or whatever the term is for how they rate you. We're bringing all of that information forward just to make it as painless as possible for the agent and as fast as possible for the customer while they're on the phone. And then, because everything's in Salesforce, when we're looking at a case, we can get to an order. So customer calls up and says, maybe they're really impatient. Lots of people are impatient. They say, hey, I called yesterday. Where is this thing? Agent can pull up that case just like they did, see that the order was placed, see what the status is. Maybe if there was a back order on a product, they might want to make a payment adjustment, say, this took longer for whatever reason than we promised. We're going to give them 50% of their money back. I'll show you that in a second, but you have everything in one place. And then in First Alert's instance, they use SAP as their ERP system. So instead of the agent having to go over and key in an order manually, like they used to, if that payment is successful and is valid, as soon as that happens, order gets shot off to SAP totally automatically, and it goes out the door. And that could be the difference between missing a 5 p.m. cutoff to get the product there faster, or not. So next we have, and I think that this is really powerful, we have the ability right within Salesforce to see every piece of the puzzle, from the case to the order to the charge. And let's say that example where mistakes happen, things get screwed up. You want to give them a partial refund, you can do that. You want to give them a full refund, you can do that. And because it's Salesforce, you can control who can do it. So maybe not every customer service agent can, give a refund, or maybe they can give, a 10% refund, but you have to go to a manager if you want a full refund. So you have all kinds of flexibility because you're native on the platform. One of the really convenient things, or the great thing about Chargent with a company like First Alert, is that they already had a credit card gateway set up with Chase Payment Tech. And if we walked in there and said, okay, you need to get accounting to get a gateway set up with some other gateway, it would have never happened in a company that big. It would have taken an act of Congress to get them to change. But because Chargent supports so many gateways, we just said, oh, you got Chase Payment Tech, no problem. Supported, plug it in, and these guys were up and running in days, rather than months of corporate bureaucracy. So something that you can't do with some of the other solutions out there. And from an outcome standpoint, we took all these 5 systems, scattered, there's no accountability. Now you've got full accountability. You can now look and see, I've got agent number 1, and they are comping everything. And I've got agent number 2, and he's charging customers 100% of the time. Probably neither one of those is good. So you can use this, because you have all this data, you can measure it, and you can use it to coach your customer service reps so they give your customers better service. The payments are fast and accurate. Before it was, I went over to the banking website and I transposed a number and I charged the customer the wrong thing, and then that resulted in another call. Now all of the pricing and whatnot is built into the system, and you just hit a button. You can't get it wrong. It's always right. And of course, the orders go out faster, and everybody hates waiting, especially when something is broken. So all of that customers get better service, and First Alert brand recognition or brand loyalty increases, and sales is impacted in a positive way. So that's the story of First Alert and the lesser known use case of payments in a customer support scenario. Any questions I can answer before we move on? I know everybody's anxious to get to happy hour, but there's got to be something.
So you guys came in and just did the whole business analysis, put the entire flow together.
Yeah.
They had 50 users impacted by this.
Yep. Yeah, and the users are distributed geographically too, so it was a little tricky, but not a that's why you use things like Salesforce. And it was great. I mean they used to have, it was crazy how things operated before. Orders didn't get sent out. There's inventory was hard to get to. So when a customer, you probably couldn't see it because it was pretty small, but if a customer wanted to know when they were going to get that replacement battery, you couldn't give them an accurate answer before because you didn't have any access to inventory. Well, now with this SAP integration, when the agent goes to place that order, they see availability right away. And if there is no availability, they can take steps to address the situation or at least manage expectations.
Is there any legacy data that you had to bring in as well?
Oh yeah, all of these bill of materials may not be the right word, but basically the package contents for every product, you needed to get that in the system so that when customer calls about XYZ model safe, that these are the replacement parts for that unit. So populating a product hierarchy was one example. The
previous purchases or
yeah, so we elected, because the previous system was so bad, we elected not to bring in customer history. And it was also at a time, we did this at a time when they were just starting to roll out their connected products where that history is more important. So it wasn't that critical to bring it in. It would have been nice, but it would have the data was just so bad. I mean, there were no rules in place for, it would have been a huge project with little value. Yeah. So, and then beyond that, I'm trying to think, there was knowledge in a variety of places that we pulled in, but none of it was structured, so it was a fairly manual process. But now they have a structured way to do and organize everything, and going forward, things are awesome. But I've gone into a bunch of large companies, and you would be surprised at how archaic things still are. They don't even know that some of this stuff is possible. I mean, the whole payment idea was not something that they asked for. It was something that we suggested. Like, let's tie in payment processing. It's not that they're trying to make replacement parts a profit center, but if you don't make the payment process really easy, it's a big source of leakage. If you think about it, I mean, if I'm an agent and it is a giant pain to charge somebody for a $10 wall plate and $5 of postage or $2 of postage, I'm not going to do it. And if you sell 1 million smoke detectors and you have to send out, I don't know, whatever the numbers are, you can see how that would add up really fast and make a big difference. So, yeah. Anything else? Any other questions? All right. All right then. Well, we are at the Thirsty Bear tomorrow and Friday from 10 to 4. So if anybody wants to stop by and take a closer look, you can find us there. And stop by for lunch or breakfast too. Good food. So thank you.